And we're underway. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's final meeting of the current iteration of the Oakland Mills Community Association Village Board. We're going to get started, and first things we have to do are a couple of administrative items. First is to approve the minutes from the April 12th, 2022 board meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
A motion from Ginny. Is there I see a second from Bill. All right. Is there any discussion of those minutes? Okay. All in favor of approving? 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 0. Okay. Next, we have to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? I see a motion from Ginny. And I see a second from Warren. Any discussion of tonight's agenda? Okay, all in favor of approving? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 0. Okay, we are underway. First on the agenda is resident remarks. Anyone wishing to make remarks to the board has up to 3 minutes. And if you use the Zoom hand raise feature, I will call on you in the order that Zoom sees you raising the hand. Anyone for resident remarks? Going once, going twice. Moving on.
Jonathan,
All right.
I'll pull up the sheet.
Cool. All right. Old business. So we have a couple of important financial items for old business. The first will help us close out fiscal 22, and the second will help us establish fiscal 23. So first up is we have the fiscal 22 final donation requests and review of partially funded requests. For the benefit of those who weren't attending at the last meeting, the board talked about the request that did not fully fund last fall, as well as the new request that came in when we solicited for new requests this spring. And what we have in the second column are the penciled in amounts for the organizations that either we didn't fully fund in the fall or that requested funding this spring. So now what the board needs to do is to determine if it wants to turn those penciled amounts into inked amounts. In other words, vote these amounts in or make adjustments along the way. There were two, I think there was one follow-up question from the last board meeting, and that was to the fine arts boosters to get a better understanding of what their priorities were among the things they listed, as well as an understanding about what the I just went blank on the term,
A master clinician.
Thank you, master clinician. I wanted to say like resident expert, master clinician, what the master clinician was. So are you able to bring that up too, Sandy, just for everyone?
Yeah, but I don't know if I can share them both, so.
I can read it if not. I can bring it up on my screen and read it.
Okay.
All right, so first of all, a master clinician is what we guessed it was. It's an expert in each of the areas that FAB covers. So dance, band, orchestra, choir, piano, guitar, that come in and share their expertise with the students. So they might teach them a song, they might teach them a new instrument, within that discipline, or they might come in and share general performing arts knowledge. And each master clinic, sets their own fee. So, when they said $2,500 in support to each program for master clinicians, they don't necessarily know what every fee will be, but that amount would help them ensure that they can get one in for each of the programs they cover. Now, in terms of their priorities, their number one priority is the band uniform, dry cleaning, as well as the replacement of I guess, pieces that can't be repaired and repair of the pieces that can be. So that's $1,600. It costs them about $1,600 per year to do that. The second priority would be the master clinicians, and that's $2,500. So for those doing quick math in their head, hopefully you're coming up with something similar to I am, and that's about 4,100 so far to cover their top two priorities.
Correct.
Number 3 was funds to travel to events that require transportation. That was 2,500. 4 was drum cases at 1,500. 5 was costuming and rentals for the fall play and spring musical at 5,000, and 6 was violins at 2,400. So one thing we can do, and I think this has worked well for us in the past, is if I go through each one, and if we have general consensus on the amount, or we need to make an adjustment, we can do that on the fly, and then, basically vote the whole thing rather than trying to vote each one by one, if that works for everyone. All right, so the first one was to complete the OMU request from the fall. We didn't give them everything they requested. To complete their request would be an additional $138 is what we penciled in at the last meeting. Are there any thoughts on modifying that? All right, I can't see everyone at once, so I'm sort of scanning back and forth to make sure no one's waving a hand at me or anything. Okay, the next one was Oakland Mills Online. To complete their request, which was an equipment, funding for equipment, would be another $1,500, which is what we penciled in at the last meeting. Are there any suggested modifications to that? All right, I'm gonna jump over grassroots for now because we didn't.
Oh, Rebecca has a hand up.
Rebecca?
Sorry, I had to switch my screens. I couldn't get my mute off fast enough. I will say the only thing about OMO, and I don't know if we can do this since they only asked for that amount, but I am here with Amy Brooks and I was asking her about it. And she said the amount that they requested is actually less than they really need. They just tried to ask for something reasonable. So because they have to replace the whole laptop system, which is going to cost more than the $2,000. They asked for 2,000. We gave them 500 in the fall. So I don't know if it's possible to add more to that without them having asked for more, but I just wanted it to be known that that 1,500 doesn't even cover everything that they need. They were just trying to be nice.
If they would just stop buying Apple and buy PCs, they get better deals. I've said that to Amy before. I'm just joking.
Make that a note in the funds, right? It cannot be used. Not a good investment of our funds.
I mean, we traditionally haven't done it that way because then, the other organizations that maybe aren't here wouldn't have the same opportunity to go, well, this is what we really need. So as much as I love OMO, my thought on it is, come back in October and ask us for more under the new budget so that we can just keep it fair to everyone, since we put the word out to send in your amounts, and
I'm good.
sort of have to go with what's in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if others have thoughts on that. Bill?
Yes, Jonathan, I agree with you. I think we've established a process and we're following the process, and it's a good process that's worked well. And any organization can always put in request this coming October, or they could have put it in the initial request from last October. So I think it's important to stay with the process that works. And as you said, other organizations aren't here tonight to say, well, we only requested X, but we really would like X plus Y. Can you give us Y?
Okay. Yeah, and I was just mentioning this earlier during the education meeting, since we had a couple of the PTA representatives on. Really, I think we all agree that we mean it when we say to organizations, don't be shy. You're not going to offend us. The worst that happens is you ask us for more than we can fund, and then we'll do what we can. And that's the best we can do. So I would again just say to anyone listening, if you're with an organization who is going to come back in and look for donations in the fall, don't be shy. It really, 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 really does not offend us. We actually want to know the amount of need out there. We may not be able to fill it all, but we want to know what the need is, because it gives us a better idea for our own planning as we plan our future budgets. All right, are there additional thoughts on OMO? All right, I'm going to skip over grassroots because we hadn't even assigned a penciled in an amount on that. Let's just work the ones we had. Village in Howard requested 500 and we had penciled in filling their full request. Are there any additional thoughts on the Village in Howard amount? Scanning around, I don't see anyone. There must be some way of, oh, I can make it 2 columns. Okay, I can barely read the, okay, the Oakland Mills Interfaith Center. We penciled in a partial fund of their planting effort. Basically, what we said we wouldn't fund is food giveaways or gifts, but the actual environmental piece of it, we did want to fund fully, and that would come to $1,200. Any additional thoughts on that one? Oh, Rebecca, did you have one? Oh, is that a thumbs up? Okay. All right, Stevens Forest Elementary Battle of the Books, they asked for 250 and we penciled in a full request. Any further discussion on that? All right, Oakland Mills High School, that should be a PTSA. That's from the PTSA, not the school itself. After prom, asked for a full 500 toward the after prom event. We penciled in 500 to fill that request. Anything additional there? All right. The Oakland Mills Middle School, this is for the principal to do the garden. $500 to the middle school. Any additional thoughts there? Rebecca's giving another thumbs up again. You know how I feel about that mess outside the middle school. So anything that says garden has to be an improvement over whatever that is that they have now. Abby's with the middle school PTSA.
Yeah, I'm one of the, I'm advocating and attending on behalf of the administration because I did, once I learned that that was being opened back up by the village and our PTSA had already received some funds, Lena Kennedy and I went to the administration and kind of brainstormed with them and the garden project was up. I just want to clarify that in the fall, if they need more money, because this was not, again, this was not the whole amount that they needed. The administration was afraid to ask for the entire amount that they needed to construct the deer fence that is required in order to put in the nourishing garden. So this is basically half of what they need. Could they come back in the fall and ask for the other half or other money to support the garden?
Absolutely. They can, the PTSA can. Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to clarify. So
Yeah.
I can pass it along.
And again, the message back is don't be shy. The worst that can happen is we can't give the full amount. I mean,
I wrote a huge grant letter.
Yeah.
It was very detailed on cost specs of the wood and the netting and all of the things, and they butchered my math. So just
yeah,
wanted to
look,
clarify. Thank you.
last year, Mr. Cosentino said the middle school needs a new TV for every classroom, and lo and behold, a truck showed up with a new TV for every classroom. So don't be shy.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. All right, from Talbot Springs Elementary, I believe this is also for the school, for the principal, $660 toward the Little Free Library. Hi, Amy. Any additional thoughts on the Talbot Springs Little Free Library? I only have one question. They're not gonna like take that 660 and put it in front of the old building so it gets knocked down this summer, right? I'm kidding. I'm sure it's for the new building. All right, 660.
That
for the
was
Talbot Springs.
specified. It was specified for the new building.
Okay, I was kidding.
Oh,
All right,
okay.
and then for the fine arts boosters, we had penciled in 5,000. Their total items add up to 15,500. They were not asking us to fund everything. They were just giving us a list. So we had penciled in 5,000 toward the boosters. If we stuck with that amount, excuse me, it would fully fund the uniform cleaning and repair, the master clinicians, and then they'd have a little left over to put toward other things. Any further discussion of the 5,000 to the fine arts boosters? All right. Well, then the only thing we are left with is whether we want to provide anything to grassroots. And I know the struggle we had with grassroots is they kind of sent their usual non-specific, we do nice things for the community. If you'd like to give us something, we'd appreciate it type request, which is, a little, I know that that's a little bit challenging for us because we like to know where things are going. So we sort of said, we'll think about it for a couple of weeks and come back to it. So were there any, now that we've had a couple of weeks, were there any additional thoughts on the grassroots request? Bill?
Yes, Jonathan, my feeling is we, in the process that we use, we do ask them to say what the organization is, et cetera, what they're going to use it for, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's important to stick with that. Yes, grassroots does a lot of really good things, but it would be nice to know from them, here's something specific money-wise we want, and we want to cover this, because pretty much everybody else we're giving money to has complied with that request. So I think it's important to stick with the policy and the process and not do anything with grassroots. And in the future, tell them, you've got to be specific. You got to name a number and you got to say what it's going to go for. Then we can consider it in fairness to everybody else who applies and fairness to us administering a process. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Ginny?
Thanks. I used to be on the grassroots board years ago, and I'm very supportive of the organization, but I totally support what Bill has just said. I think we need to consider a call to the executive director of grassroots to explain, because quite frankly, this is somewhat of an insult to Oakland Mills in terms of just, hey, you got any money, give it to us. I don't think that was the intention, but that certainly comes across as that. So we need to maybe talk to them and educate them. And the other thing is we're focused really on Oakland Mills. So they, if possible, need to show us how any donation relates to Oakland Mills residents, but not solely. I mean, just if they're going to start a new suicide, well, they already have a suicide hotline or something. You understand what I mean? A new program,
Yeah.
Or continuing the funding of a program that is essential, especially these days in mental health area or something, or shelter. They just need to tell us. I think it's a little, as Bill said, only he didn't put it this way, it's a little surprising and disrespectful of the evaluation process. They would never do this, I'm sure, with Columbia Foundation or Howard County Foundation, it's now called, or Horizon Foundation. Yeah, you need to be evaluated. You can't. That's it. Okay, thanks.
I think that's fair. And look, we don't require the kind of formal grant request that some organizations require, but I think what you're saying is reasonable. And what I would recommend we start with is, because Cassandra, you think they kind of sort of send this out, all over the
Right.
place and see what they get.
Yeah.
I know you do a response to everyone who makes a request, even if we didn't fill it. Maybe in your response, we can craft some language, explaining to them what we would be looking for in the future.
Okay,
And also letting them know that the future would be our October 15th. There's no guarantee that we're going to do this every spring. This was sort of the second or third special year we've had because of the pandemic and finances being a little funny and things not being completely up to speed early in the year.
okay.
All right, so with all that said, it sounds like we do have consensus around the penciled in remarks. Is there a motion to approve these tentative amounts and make them final amounts? Okay, I see a hand from Rebecca that I'll take as a motion, and I
Second.
see a hand from Bill that I'll take as a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 0. All right, thank you very much. Sandy, you'll let all these organizations know
Right,
what's coming. We'll get checks
Right.
out.
right. I'm just pulling up the next document.
All right, the next item on our old business is the fiscal 23 budget, which Sandy introduced and walked us through. Actually, I think we've talked about it at 2 meetings, right? think
Yeah, I
you
did make
introduced-
2 changes.
Yeah,
I increased the staff salaries. And basically that relates to the number of rentals that we're having and having increased staffing at our rentals, 2 people for the evenings. And so that should increase it. And the other thing that, of course, I had to increase payroll benefits because that is in correlation to the salaries. And then on the expense side or the revenue side, I increased our room rentals based on looking through the calendar for the coming year. So we do, and CA actually recalculated from our initial, they reimbursed for the employer portion of the medical benefits. And at first they thought it was like 55,000, which was in the original budget, but recalculating on actual benefits, it's 34,000. So we do show a deficit. These came in different order of 21,000 for the next year's budget. We normally have been showing a deficit, and then actually by the 4th quarter, realizing that we had a better year than we did, but I couldn't change anything else to balance it off. It's just the reality of what we project. And hopefully our projections will show a little less in salaries and a little more in rentals income. So that's where we're at. Jonathan went over it all with me, shared it with Bill, went through all the categories. So there's pretty much no more changes that I could see happening.
yeah, and I don't get overly concerned when I see a projected deficit. I mean, first of all, we have the cash reserves to cover a deficit.
Mhm.
Not that we want to dip into them, but second, you're normally very conservative about the revenue side of the equation when it comes to our rentals.
Rebecca?
Do you have a question for Sandy?
Yeah, just off of the back of the last item that we just did. It looks like there's only 5, and I'm on my phone, so I can't switch back and forth. It looks like there's only 5,000 under the donation line item.
Correct.
So do we up that? I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of need now in our community that we can help with, and it looks like we have an income of lots. So
I didn't increase it. I mean, I increased it from this year, and we wound up getting more in 2000 and or FY21. We actually gave a lot more, but it'll just show more of a deficit budget at this point. So that's why I felt like that was based on the budget, a realistic figure. And then, it's up to the board as we get our actual numbers in after the 3rd quarter to possibly look at it like we are this year. But right now, if I increase that, it's just going to increase how much more deficit we're carrying.
I mean, it has turned out for the past few years that we've been able to increase that retroactively. And we could certainly do that again. I mean, if we increase it now, we're basically increasing it with money we say we don't have. So I get Sandy's point. I think this will be a decision for the next board, but I think what I would like to see next year is that we really, we really get the word out about our October 15th deadline, get all these organizations that have these requests to really get those requests in so we can get a good early look at what the need is. And then, we could allocate up to what's in our budget at that time. And then kind of like we did with the old request this time, hold the rest for later in the year to see if we can provide the additional funding. What I'd like to avoid, though, is I'd like to avoid going out with the second solicitation. I'd really like to get everyone back into the habit of knowing April 15th is when you put in your request to OMCA, because it helps us plan better.
October 15th.
Did I say April? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
it's October 15th. I'm
Well,
thinking of
would
my
it-
other job.
Would it make more sense to not do it in the fall then, to do it in the spring when we have a better idea of how much we have? I know a lot of projects happen in the fall, but I mean, people can just reroute their habits.
Yeah, we could. I mean, we could decide to change that later on. The reason we said October 15th, if I recall, was that our donations have primarily gone toward educational efforts, and October 15th, at least at that time, felt like a good date because like the PTAs and the boosters and the schools and everything usually set their budgets in late August, early September. So it's kind of fresh in their mind, you know, what events they have planned, what kind of income they think they're going to get and what they might need. So the idea was to try to align to that, but there's nothing that says we can't change our date.
And doing it in the spring gives those organizations time to do their own fundraising and their own events so that we then fill the gap instead of being the first source of funds, but then they have to do fundraising to, you know, fill the gap, but we're the gap filler, if that makes sense.
I have a
Yeah.
question, Jonathan.
So.
If a
so,
PTA, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so we're kind of straddling like two different board years here. So I think for setting the budget, the date doesn't necessarily matter. We just need to have an amount in there and we can always adjust it later. If we're going to change the date, then I think that's something we discuss as the new board, or those of us who will be on the new board, because it'll be the new board that has to entertain those requests at a different time. So it's something we can basically bring in as business at that second meeting in May after we do the administrative stuff in the first meeting.
Jonathan, when a PTA, do they have to give money back at the year end? Like if we gave them a
No.
chunk of money in April, it's not only, you know, that'll last them for the next year too?
Only we are in that insane arrangement. No, the
Okay.
PTAs get to keep whatever they have
Okay,
left at
because
the
I
end
just
of
want
the
to
year.
make sure if we change it that we're not thinking we're helping them and in a sense we're not. So I just
No.
want to make sure.
No.
Okay.
The only thing most nonprofits have to worry about is that they're keeping so much that it starts raising questions about whether they're really a nonprofit or they're just, you know, building a bunch of liquidity for the sake of building liquidity. But no, the local PTAs don't have to turn, I mean, they have to turn things over to the top, but it's based on their membership numbers. It's not based on them having a cap on how much they can carry over from year to year.
Okay. That's good to know.
So I guess I mean, what Rebecca is saying is we could change the donation amount now and just show a bigger deficit on the budget we're adopting now, or we could leave it as it is. Feeling fairly confident that we won't actually be in deficit as we get into the next fiscal year and then adjust it on the fly.
I'm good withdrawing that idea. I wasn't doing the math right because I was trying to flip between too many screens. I'm fine
Okay.
leaving it.
Okay, all right, thanks. All right, Sandy, is there anything else you needed to highlight?
No, I think I've done it. So we'll just need a motion and a vote.
All right, are there any other questions for Sandy? All right, is there a motion to adopt the fiscal 23 budget as presented? All right, I see a motion from Bill. Is there a second? I see Rebecca. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of adopting the budget as presented? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 0. All right, that is the end of the old business. We are on to the board chair report. Sandy, can you close that out so I can see everyone again? There we go. That is so much better. It is so hard to do this when the screen's being shared and everyone's crammed into a little corner. All right, so board chair report. First of all, and I apologize for this, this is my screw up. I forgot to put an education committee report under the committee, so I'm just going to cover it here. I sent something to all of you early this morning. We find ourselves in that situation again where there is a capital budget public testimony opportunity that falls after this board is retired and before the new board convenes for the first time. It's on May 5th. I think we were in this situation last year. So I did draft some testimony under the assumption that OMCA would continue to support the renovations of the two schools at the Oakland Mills campus. Shared it with the education committee tonight. Everyone was cool with that. So if we want to go ahead and say, yeah, let's testify, you know, between the old board and the new board, I'm willing to sign up on the 5th and do that. And under the old board, we can also put out like one of those e-news items that says, you know, here's what's happening, here's the date, here's a copy of our testimony, please send yours in or sign up and make sure that they keep hearing Oakland Mills, Oakland Mills, Oakland Mills. So for those of you who maybe didn't get a chance to look at your emails today, picture the testimony I did for the planning board and then the county council, but with the Board of Education as the audience. So, you know, it thanks them for doing what they did last fall. It reminds them of the needs at those two schools, and then it encourages them to stay the course. It's a one-pager. I was saying at the education committee meeting, these testimonies become much shorter and easier to write when it's the stuff you want is already there and you just need to keep it there.
Hopefully it'll be over at some point, right?
I hope so, because I'm getting too old for this, you know what.
Yeah, well, you better hang in there for another 4 or 5 years. Because I think that's what it's going to take. Okay.
All right. So are there any objections to us doing that? And especially from those board members who will be on the next board. I know there are 3 of us here plus, I mean, 4 of us here plus Ginny. So in theory, we do have a quorum of the next board sitting here. All right, then I will go ahead with that. I'll finish that up and work with Sandy on getting a communication out. Other board chair report items. Actually, before I get into the tough thing, because I think Ginny will then want to pick it up in her report. I just wanted to take the opportunity, you know, because this is our last meeting of the year. What's that?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank everyone for a great year and thank everyone for their support of the community. And, you know, Bill, Rebecca, Warren, Ginny, Jerome, who's not here. I look forward to working with you next year. And to Jennifer, as well as to Lynn and to Rena, who unfortunately couldn't be here. I just want to say again, you know, thank you for stepping up and serving. You know, Jennifer, you have roots in the community. You're young, you know, kind of getting started out. So I'm sure this is not the last we've heard from you. For Lynn, you know, next year will be one of those rare years in my 20 years here that there's not an Engelke on the board, one way or the other. Between Lynn or Phil. So, you know, when you look for families who step up in Oakland Mills, you know, you usually come across last names like McCormack and Thomas, and I think you can add the Engelkes to that. So thanks to Lynn for all she does, and I know she plans to stay involved. And then, of course, what can I say about Rena? Rena's, you know, this is going to make it sound like I'm calling her old, and I'm not. She's younger than I am, but she's been here forever. And she knows everyone in the community. And I'm so glad she was able to serve for a year on the board. And I truly hope she'll be able to make a triumphant return after she, you know, she has some other priorities she has to address this year, but maybe we'll be seeing her again next year. So I especially want to thank our 3 members who won't be returning, because this does take commitment. And, you know, I appreciate all you've done, and I've appreciated the time we've spent together, and I know you won't be strangers. Now, with that said, I'm going to go into the last part of my board report, and you all saw an email from me to Ginny and Bill, actually replying back to Ginny and copying everyone. And my My consternation in that email was certainly not directed toward Ginny, because Ginny and I are very much on the same page. In fact, Ginny, Bill, and I did a lot of talking over the weekend. I'm not at all pleased that the day before Election Day, and we didn't have an election here in Oakland Mills, but the day before Election Day in some villages, CA decided out of the blue that they would no longer be casting their corporate votes in village elections due to the quote candidate pool unquote, and that's directly from the CA president. I'm also displeased that CA had their attorney, without the knowledge of any of the village boards or village managers, apparently look into our legal documents and make the determination that our elections are not our annual meetings, and therefore we don't need quorums of our members for our elections to be valid. Article 1, Section 1.01 of our bylaws clearly state that our annual meeting is for the purpose of electing our board of directors, as well as our Columbia Council representative. Bill, Sandy, and I all went through our bylaws and our bylaw amendments, and there is nothing in there to suggest that our election is anything but an annual meeting and we need to achieve a quorum. So, you know, I realize that this board is going out, a new board is coming in, and we didn't actually have an election, but in my opinion, this sets a bad precedent, and unfortunately, this is indicative of a trend. Because when we were talking about the HOA bill just a few weeks ago, we also learned that CA's attorney had done something on behalf of the villages and decided what was in our best interest. And we're actually on the record with the Maryland General Assembly taking a different position than CA has taken on our behalf. I'm kind of interested to know what, you know, CA or we would say should any of our delegates or senators come back to us and go, what gives? I know what I would want to say. And now we find ourselves in this situation. And quite frankly, I don't believe that CA's attorneys should be looking at our documents and coming to any conclusions, because this has the potential to cause us a lot of problems or cost us a lot of money. Because if we have to go back and get our own legal opinion, we're going to be paying for that. CA is not going to fund that for us. And I still stand by the opinion we've been given by the late Tom Meacham that our election is our annual meeting. Recall, we had him do a lot of work on that because of COVID to ensure that we could continue to have that meeting without actually having the event at the other barn. So it's been in our recent past that this was last looked at. And my concern is CA doing this as a one-year only thing due to candidate pool? What will happen next year if we have a contested election? If we didn't achieve what we think is the quorum and CA didn't vote, I would not be comfortable certifying our election results and sending a representative to the Columbia Council based on CA's interpretation of our documents. I would feel comfortable going with the way we've always interpreted our documents. And I don't know what kind of situation that would cause for us if, we said to CA, we've got no one to send to you because we don't have a quorum yet. There is one village in that position right now, and they are continuing with their election. They are continuing under their old way of doing business, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So my reason for saying all that is I really do think that we should send something to the CA board and to the CA president, effectively saying, stop messing in our business without talking to us. I mean, I'm putting it very bluntly, and you can see my thought process in that email I sent over the weekend. Obviously, we would send something more professional and thought out, than that, along the lines of what I sent in that reply to Ginny. But I really do feel strongly that we shouldn't just let this pass by. The timing of it was atrocious. The lack of communication is atrocious. And I think the precedent it sets is atrocious. We have gone to CA in the past when all the villages had issues, and we've wanted CA's attorneys to look at it. And the response from CA when we need them has always been, we're not your attorney, go get your own attorney. But when it serves CA, they are very willing to go into our documents and make their own interpretations and tell us how we should be operating. And it not only is it wrong, in my opinion, it completely contradicts the way we've been operating, and it contradicts what our own attorney has told us. And unfortunately, he's not here. We couldn't make a quick call to him and say, what do you think of this? We will have to start over anew with someone else if this goes too far. Rebecca?
did we get clarification from CA by what they meant by candidate pool? Is it because they didn't like any of the candidates? They didn't feel comfortable voting for them, or? I mean, that's the only thing I can assume they meant, but I don't know if they gave you something else.
I think that should be part of what we question if we send something formal back to them.
Because I can totally understand. I mean, I don't actually think CA should be voting because they represent all of us. And it seems like a conflict of interest for them to vote on who's going to be on their board to represent, anyway. But I mean, I don't know who the candidates were, but imagine worst case scenario, if you have, you know, the town drunk running for a position, how it would be really terrible if CA cast their vote in support of that person, right?
So yeah, so CA doesn't really pick a candidate. CA casts its corporate votes. They actually call it casting it toward the majority. So they basically cast their votes to reflect the will of the residents of the village. Their votes cannot change the outcome of election. Their votes will just contribute to the village being able to establish a quorum. Now, some villages do it differently. So, some villages actually like proportionally allocate the CA votes to the candidates, so it doesn't change the outcome, right? If person A for CA rep got 55% and portion B got 45%, CA's votes aren't going to change that person A won. Other villages like Oakland Mills actually list the CA votes separately as almost like they voted present just toward the quorum. So it doesn't even go to a candidate. And I think that's the thing that's really frustrated some of our fellow villages that did have contested elections this year. They count on these CA votes coming in to help them establish this quorum. And when they find out the day before the election that the CA votes are not coming in, they quickly have to scramble and figure out what to do if they don't achieve that quorum. And then CA's response to that was, "Oh, you don't need a quorum. This isn't an annual meeting." Well, I haven't come across a village yet that doesn't consider its election its annual meeting. And I haven't looked at all the village's legal documents, but ours clearly say that it is. So but to your point, Rebecca, if CA just decided they don't want to do this anymore because it's just, an administrative check the box, in villages, you just need to increase your engagement to achieve a quorum. And in Oakland Mills, we do. In Oakland Mills, we would have a quorum in most elections without the CA votes. Not all villages can say that. That's fine. But the way they went about this is just terrible. The timing of it and the rationale given, and then having their, like I said, having their attorney say he went through each village's documents and came to this conclusion. Number one, each village is an independent association. So I don't know how long he was working on this. I don't know any of the inner workings, but I would think it would take an attorney a little bit of time to go through the legal documents of 10 independent associations. And I'm very surprised that he would come to the same conclusion on each of the 10, especially given what we know ours says.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just the bylaws. If it's in the articles of incorporation that states the quorum. So he'd have to look at all of our documents, because what's in the bylaws clarifies more, can elaborate more on what's in our articles of incorporation.
Right. And just to clarify, it's the bylaws that actually say that the annual meeting is for the purpose of electing our officers and our Columbia representative. That's Article 1, Section 1.01.
Right.
The very first sentence in our bylaws say the opposite of what the CA attorney said. But to Sandy's point, the articles also, have
a quorum.
Have the language around establishing a quorum.
Right.
So those are my thoughts on the matter. I will take direction from all of you. You know how I feel. I'm willing to sit down and write something and share it with all of you before this board year expires. I have my strong feelings about it, and that's all I'll say. If we want to, and I don't know, Jenny, did you want to pick up from here, or do you want to have a little discussion before we go over to you, Jenny?
And she's to get back to her.
I didn't know if you wanted me to do this as part of just moving into my my comments. So why don't yeah, okay. First of all, I want to thank Jonathan and Bill and Sandy. I found out about this really late on Friday when I came home from dinner with a couple of friends. So just for some background, Sandy, I think what I heard, and maybe you can help me verify if this is true or not, that this actual memo went to only the village managers, not even the chair of the boards, not even the boards, not frankly the CA board, at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning on Friday. Keep in mind, not only were some people voting on Saturday, but some people were voting on Friday night.
It only went to the villages that had contested elections too. So we didn't get it. And it was one sentence.
That is my point, is that
Yeah.
if Sandy hadn't gotten it from somebody else and let us know, and if when I got home and read this, I said, oh my God, what the, never mind what else I said. And then I called Jonathan and Bill, and Sandy was working the shredder, so she got involved later. But it was like, what is going on here? The CA board didn't even know there was a change. Well, we were explained to us that it's not a policy decision and it's not any of our business affair. It was put maybe a little more politely than that. It's not a policy thing. So there's a couple of issues here. One, if somebody's working with the village documents, it would be just polite to let the villages know, which includes the board and the village manager. Okay, that's what I think should have happened. Two, it would have been real nice to let the board know so that we weren't blindsided. Three, there's the whole issue of, so what is it? And to answer Rebecca's question, I don't think CA should be in the position of deciding what the candidate pool is or isn't and whether it's acceptable to CA. Who are we talking about at CA? We certainly weren't talking about the board. We were talking about a staff person. They have a right to decide what you do in your village. I'm sorry, I don't think so. I think this is interfering with the election, or may be seen as. You notice I'm going to qualify everything so I don't wind up with an ethics complaint against me or a lawsuit. And this is my individual opinion. I qualify it with that too. I don't think they should be deciding who the residents of a village vote for. Now, what this normally was used for, the CA votes, and frankly, Howard used in the last election in order to try and perhaps try and influence it, actually cast their votes, which I don't recall them ever doing before. I don't know if they did it this time or not. But what I'm saying is, if they cast the votes to simply establish a quorum, I don't see that that's taking a position on a candidate, although I already said that I don't think they have any business taking a position on a candidate, but I don't see it as that. So there's two issues, whether you establish it just to help the community get through the election, a quorum. Let's face it, there are many villages where not that many people vote. So, I mean, how long do you want to stretch on and extend an election? Which will then result in, if you get even a few more people and still don't meet your quorum, the election is decided by who the majority is. So you're not really declaring those votes for the candidate and adding on to them. Oakland Mills has been very good. Sandy has made it very clear that the winner gets X number of votes, the loser gets Y number of votes, and then there's the CA votes, which will, but it's clear how many votes were actually cast by, quote, residents, and what the percentage was that the winner and loser got. So I don't think there's anything there that we've been doing. In fact, I think we're an example of how things should go. So I'm annoyed that this suddenly happened and that we didn't know about it. All the villages had a stake in this and were disrespected if you didn't have an election. I'm not encouraging us to have a contested election, but anyway, so that's point one. So I am.
Ginny, can I add one thing to your point? Because you're absolutely right. I mean, it's been tradition for CA to cast their votes, and the votes do not change the outcome. They do not change who the winners of the election are. I would argue that breaking tradition and not casting votes due to the candidate pool is making a statement. Because had they just done what they always did, no one would notice. They chose to break that tradition due to candidate pool. That's making a statement. I don't know what candidate they're making a statement about, but it's making a statement.
Well, I think, and this is unfortunately encrypted email, so I'm in an awkward spot, so I can't say anymore, but I think one could, well, I guess I can't say anymore as to whether it was a specific candidate or not, okay?
Well, no, Jenny, notice I said, I don't know.
I
didn't
don't
say I don't
know.
have my thoughts. I said, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to respond with, really? So anyway, it's duplicable. I mean, it's just terrible that, how can you do this? And I honestly, I can't explain it. I wish I could, but we can't do things like this, okay? So I appreciate that Oakland Mills, as usual, is taking a leadership role, because some of the villages are just trying to still figure out what happened, or they haven't met yet, or et cetera. So if you guys decide to do what I think is the correct thing, is to bring this to the attention of the staff. You have a right to your opinion, and the residents, and the board, as to what you think. And there'll be a turnover in the board in May. I would just appreciate if you'd share that with your colleagues, village managers, Sandy, and the chairs of the board, and the other board members in other villages, because some of them are just trying to figure out what the heck happened, and some may not even know anything happened.
Yeah, one village did respond already, sending an email to, Ginny might have gotten copies. I think it was the CA board and Lakey and Dennis and the general counsel, questioning the annual meeting part of it, because it was contrary to what their attorney has told them.
What village? I don't recall.
Hickory Ridge. I'll send it to you later. I thought you got it as a CA board member.
If it came today, I may have.
No, it was yesterday, late afternoon. I'll send it to you.
Thank you. I'll check, and maybe it just went to Lakey and we didn't get it.
Yeah, maybe I'll send it to you.
Okay, so that's it on that. There's another thing that I want to share with you, and maybe Sandy can help me on this. Normally we get PDF files on what's going to be heard Thursday night. This didn't happen this time. So if Sandy wouldn't mind helping in terms of getting you some information on what the board is going to be voting on Thursday night on advisory committees. How
do I get, isn't it in the agenda?
In the agenda, and I was trying to keep from the noise.
Well, I'll just send them the whole packet.
Well, the whole packet is bloody long.
Yeah, but it's easier than pulling it out.
Well, there's one thing you got to watch for there. Okay. On the agenda, it's number 6, board votes. And it's actually a vote on recommendations of the board subcommittee on advisory committees, okay? I have a real concern. One, I don't believe the village boards were consulted. If you were, okay. I don't believe that, and I know in terms of I actually, it's unusual for a CA board member to take on 3 advisory committees, but I did this year. And I sent it to all of them. They didn't know anything. So one of the things I feel strongly about is, you may not agree with some ways I vote, but I do want input. And that's sort of just something that I really am angry when that doesn't happen. Maybe I failed once or twice, but I really feel strongly about that. So I don't feel like we've been getting input, and the reason we haven't is because I don't think people have been informed, like the village boards and like the advisory committees, as to what the changes are. Now, whether these changes make any sense or not is not the issue. I think you have a right to have the opportunity to give us feedback. So I am not going to be voting to approve that item on the agenda Thursday. I know that's controversial. I know there's a lot of pressure on the CA board to get with it and approve everything you know, or else. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing another thing on the agenda as well, but and we didn't do something at the last board meeting. We didn't approve something. So I guess that's, I think that's basically it. When you take a look at that, if you give, well, unless, you know, X number of the board members just go ahead and just approve it. I'd like to get your feedback about the appointment process, especially, and about whether you feel the changes make sense or not, breaking the advisory committees into 3 categories. And whether that means the advisory committees will continue to be, in my opinion, independent up to a point, or whether they will be able to continue to be that. And I have a real concern about that. I value advisory committees. I was one of the people that wrote the one on the climate, sustainability, and change advisory committee. I felt it was really needed. And I feel very strongly that we need advisory committees to help us do our job. And so I want to make sure they continue to function independently to a certain extent. Yeah, within their charge. And their charge, if it's going to be changed, it should be subject to a public hearing. So I feel strongly about public hearings, and I know I've been criticized for asking for public hearings on things where I've been told there's no need for a public hearing, but I don't see the harm in having a public hearing, and you make your decision based on what you're hearing, but it's a real problem. So anyway, that's about it. We will have a new board. Of course, at least so far we know Hickory Ridge will have a new board member, and Wild Lake will have a new board member, and Town Center will have a new board member, CA board member. And Harper's Choice is up in the air because of this quorum issue. But that happened to them 2 years ago too. So we'll see what happens in Harper's Choice as to whether the current CA board member is reelected, or the person opposing will be elected. Other than that, it's pretty well settled. And I'm excited to be working with the new colleagues and really setting some criteria of how we're going to go about doing things, but also what are our priorities is what I want to see happen. Pick about 5 or 6 things that need to be done, but what is the process, excuse me, about how we'll go about doing that? Do we need subcommittees? Do we need to also have on the subcommittees not just CA board members and staff, but people from that have expertise in whatever the area is that can also be on there and advise us? I really like those approaches, and we haven't done enough. We haven't done much of that at all. So I want to really work on that. And I think we need to be corresponding more with the village boards. You shouldn't be getting something at whatever it was, Sandy, 7 or 8 in the morning, and only a select group of you getting it. Is outrageous. I think it's disrespectful of the villages that didn't get it. Whether they had a uncontested race is not the issue, because it's precedence. It could be seen as precedent setting, excuse me, and will occur again next year, because if nobody complains, it's like, well, then you don't have a problem, is how that's interpreted. If nobody complains about things, oh, well, they were okay. It's policy now, or precedent. So that's about it.
Thanks, Ginny. All right, so real quick, before we get off of that, would the board want me to draft something to CA to send around to you now? Would you prefer we make this, basically punt this off to the next board, and we communicate with the new CA board via our new board? Like I said, I want to take direction from you. I have my thoughts, but we need to have consensus.
Yeah.
Doesn't require a vote or anything, but I just, I don't want to say anything on behalf of OMCA without knowing OMCA supports it.
Yeah, I feel strongly that you need to react right away. To wait for the new board. I think would be a mistake. And we can certainly share what you're saying with the new board, CA board members. They will want to know about this. They feel strongly about community engagement, the new ones. So I think it's important. You guys have been together for a year. You've done a phenomenal job. I think it's important that you have input, whether you agree with what I'm saying and Jonathan's saying, and you know, and what how Bill was about. It's up to you. But if you're going to do anything, you need to do it now. Otherwise, it's seen as, hey, no problem. You agree with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Bill? Warren?
Yes, Jonathan, I think we need to do something before our current board year ends. And two key items to me are that CA in the House bills and then in the interpretation of the annual meeting and elections in the case of Oak Mills has, my opinion, overstepped their bounds. And because we're two separate legal entities, Columbia Association and Oak Mills Community Association, they need to speak for themselves and themselves only. We need to speak for ourselves and ourselves only. And CA has been, my opinion, dictatorial and speaking for both without consulting us whatsoever. And if we allow that to continue, that we are not standing up for our organization, which we need to do as officers of the organization. And the second issue is that CA said we're going to suspend that practice this year because of the candidate pool. We need to ask, what do you mean by that? Because my personal reaction is that it impugns the integrity of everybody who ran in contested and in uncontested elections for the CA seats. The implication to me is that something went wrong this year. That's why we're not going to do this. And it's because of the candidates. Okay. It's a real cut at the candidates, my opinion. I think it's really important that we get them to very clearly define what they meant by the candidate pool is the reason we're making this change. So I think we need to react immediately. We need to react to protect our separate entity from CA, and then to get them to say why they didn't like the candidate pool this year. What's the deal? What's the issue? Are they saying Ginny Thomas isn't any good here? Are they coming after our representative? Okay, I take great offense at that. And there's that implication in that. So I think we need to be quick and firm and strong in our response. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
I agree with Bill.
Okay, Warren? Warren had his hand up earlier.
Yeah, I agree with that with Bill. I think we should respond quickly. I think if we let it sit, people will just say, CA will just shrug their shoulders at this. I question just sending it an email. I'm wondering if Jonathan, maybe you should call Lakey and just find out in a conversation instead of just an email. I think we should send some sort of a text that includes the other, that goes to CA, but includes the other village boards. So people understand that we have an objection with this. And I think a lot of the other villages might also understand our problem with it. A lot of the things you said, Jonathan, about consulting with the conflict that our lawyer, what they decided that this conflicts with what the CA lawyer said, I think is also should be resolved. And they should, we should point that out. I think other villages probably have the same issues.
Well, and as Sandy said, another village did, and Lakey's response was, "Oh, we'll have our lawyer talk to your lawyer." Well, that's going to cost that village money, right? We don't have lawyers on staff. we pay them by the hour as we need them. So honestly, my response to that, if that's what we get back, is no, you won't. We're independent, and this is our annual meeting, and this is what's required to establish a quorum. There's no need for your lawyer to talk to our lawyer because your lawyer does not need to be in our business.
Can I say something to that, Jonathan? I think CA has an obligation for the general counsel to make, who made that statement, to respond to whatever Hickory Ridge said and whatever you say with their legal opinion.
Yes,
Then you can
Yes.
decide whether you're going to take it, but they're the ones that are being challenged that their
Right.
legal opinion is not sufficient. None of this talking to lawyers, that's ridiculous. You know,
and as Sandy pointed out, this is now a village-wide issue. This potentially affects all 10 villages. Once upon a time, in a situation like this, we had a contingency fund we could turn to as the 10 villages so that we could, we could potentially use that to hire one attorney to look at this and represent the villages. CA took that away. So we are all really on our own. I mean, if this plays out, this could cost each of the 10 villages some serious money in legal fees to get this untangled.
What do you, Jonathan, what do you mean CA took that away?
It was a contingency fund where that cash reserve that we have at the end of the year, we were allowed, instead of it going back to CA, like we're looking at those projects outside, it went into what was called a contingency fund. And one village could request money through a process to the fund, and there were managers of the fund that rotated to approve it. And we did probably about 5 years ago, when they were thinking of online voting, the villages still had money in the contingency fund. It was like $400,000, but we did, as 10 villages, hire an attorney to review our legal documents and talk about the online voting and another question about contested races. But that was money that was from that cash reserve. If we needed to go back to our attorneys now, it would come out of each individual village pocket, which could get very expensive.
Could we join forces with the other?
We still have to pay.
boards?
I mean, there's
Yeah,
no
but
Yeah, but
fund
we
that
wouldn't
would
have to
cover it.
pay individually with each, maybe we could all
Yeah.
hire one.
Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, if we all agreed, we could in theory do that, but the thing is, we still would, so this does not, so basically, as you know, right, there's a cap on our cash reserves, the rest goes to CA.
Right.
In the old days, if the 10 villages wanted to do something like this, we could draw from that contingency fund and use that. So basically use the money we're giving, back to this fund to fund this village-wide effort. Now, it would basically be aligned in our budget. So it would be money that our village is not spending on other things versus, pulling surplus money back that all the villages had pulled in this fund.
I have a question, Jonathan. Do you think, or Ginny, that, and I don't want to have Jonathan or anyone have to go to another meeting, but would it be something that at this Thursday's residents speak out, it's also addressed by someone from our village board? Any thoughts? No thoughts.
Sure.
You'd have to sign up because you can't just go that night. You have to go on their website and sign up. But, I watch the meetings and people speak out and you have an audience of everyone then. What do you think, Ginny? You're muted. Oh.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry. I welcome, and I think many people on the CA board welcome input as to what residents are thinking or residents representing a group are thinking. I think it's an excellent approach, and that's why a lot of us encourage that.
Can you sign up in advance? They don't make that easy to.
Yeah,
find.
It's on the agenda.
I'll send it to you.
Some
Oh,
of
here
us
it is.
got this changed because it was so difficult to figure out where you sign up.
Yeah.
Now you just use this agenda and click here to sign
I
up.
think he's doing it right now.
Yeah, before I forget.
Well, no, that's a resident request. I'm sorry. I don't think they still got what I wanted, whereas you're supposed to be able to click.
Well,
this.
it's on their website.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be on the bloody agenda, so it makes it
Well,
easy. For God's
That
sake.
I can't help.
No, I know. It's one of these fights. You want to make everything user friendly. Okay, I don't know if that resident request thing will do it, or it'll just be a resident request, which
So there's
doesn't-
a place to speak out, Jonathan. I'll send it to you after this meeting.
I'm
Yeah.
already signed up while you and Jenny are talking.
I have
Thank you. I won't send it.
Well, it's at the beginning of a meeting. It starts at 7, so you get 3 minutes or 5 minutes because you're representing.
5 minutes.
And maybe we can, ask some questions, et cetera. So, you will, you'll be out of there by 7:15, if not sooner.
Sounds good.
Rebecca has her hand raised.
I have
Yeah,
to go. I think, Jonathan, I think we're all in agreement on this. We support you. Go speak. But I have to go. So it's nice to see
Have-
everybody. And
Have fun.
Have
okay.
fun.
Say hi to Amy.
See you next year.
Have fun, Rebecca.
I
Bye.
can't wait. There we go.
I
All
think it was her
right.
sound.
Wow. I think we've beaten that one to death. We were ahead of schedule until I knew that was going to take some time. Should have amended the agenda to give Ginny and me more time. I blame
That's
Ginny,
okay.
since she went after me.
We'll go fast from here on out.
All right, village manager report.
So we are really busy with our bookings. The parking lot has been paved, by CA. I got a message, you're gonna restripe tomorrow. We've asked them to add trees where they redid the part by the Sam's Market where they took a big tree out. Well, the tree hit and, so they will replant and they're gonna resod and make it look nice. So, that's nice. And, I've gone ahead with John's blessing, I guess, to order. We had the large screen TV mounted in the Smithy room. And so if we go to hybrid meetings, we've ordered a nice microphone, a little camera and a tripod so that, and we'll get a separate network for those meetings so that if we do that, we can continue to have hybrid meetings, which I think is something that's really important, but hopefully with a good quality speaker and everything else. And we'll have to go to get a master's degree in how to figure it out. But so that's all in the works. We had our shredding event. Surprisingly, we don't get a big turnout, but thank you to Pizza Man Restaurant because we had it in their lot and it was really nice. People could just drive in, park their car at the truck, and get their stuff and the shredder and leave. So it worked out very well. And we're now busy with getting our plant sale. And for the first 2 weeks in May, the high school will have AP testing in our building. So we have to be very quiet. And that's about it.
Thank you. Any
I
questions?
made
for
up
Sandy?
time.
Sandy, thank you for another great year.
You're welcome.
The village would not be where it is without your management.
Okay, thank you. It's my
And I mean that
pleasure.
in a good way.
What?
I guess that could be open to interpretation. I mean
Right.
that in a
I'll
good
take
way.
it as a positive thing. So thank you.
Yes. Abby, did you have a question?
This is just the gardener and me. You had mentioned the plant sale and last year I did not arrive probably as early as I should have. What are the dates? Do you have the specific dates or date for the plant sale?
It is on May 7th and the plant sale starts at 9, but I think we open our door about 8:30 and people do line up. But we have pretty much a little of everything until about 10, but get there early because there's certain things like people are going to want all the herbs. They're going to want certain things. So get there. If you have any crates that you've had plants in before and want to bring your own, that always helps.
Okay.
And we do take credit card, cash, or check.
Perfect. Yeah.
And there'll be yards alive there and Howard Echo Works. So there'll be native plants, probably a lot for free. Ours are not for free. And Echo Works, I think, has maybe a combination.
Great.
So,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, could I add to that? Yards Alive is going to be giving away free a lot of little, plants, native plants, and also vegetables. So vegetable plants. So if you're interested in that, they'll have, well, last time they had a couple of hundred. So you can just go to the Yards Alive table, learn more about Yards Alive, et cetera. Rebecca probably would have talked to this. She's active in it.
Right.
Right, thank you, Sandy.
Mm-hmm.
We are on to committee reports. Warren, Public Space.
Thank you. I have two things. Number one, this is really cool news. Dr. Ball has proposed $8.2 million for pathways, bike lanes, sidewalks, curb ramps, and other stuff. And it's very exciting. It's very cool. And I'm excited about it, and I hope you guys support it. The other thing is Bob gave us some news about the traffic circle. We had talked about, I guess maybe a month ago, about possibly putting a tree in the circle. And because of the size, it's too small. It's too small to put a tree in. The state of Maryland prohibits that. So his suggestion was,
Bob who? Marietta?
Bob Marietta, yes.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
He suggested we put in a oak tree painting or something like that, some kind of artwork that's in the circle that we could see.
I don't know. I feel like it might distract people that are already distracted. I would really love breakaway white cones so that no one drives through it. It worries me that, to tell you the truth.
We did say that. Every time I go, I don't drive that way that much, but every time I do, I'm always surprised that the circle is there. It might be because my habit has always been.
It's the terrain.
Right. You just don't see it. Right.
Either way. But I think that I would like to see other things done to the circle that Bill and Jonathan and I have asked for, to the point where we basically just got fed up, for lack of another word. Well, we wanted, I think the most important thing is to show something with height that people see it. And there's those white breakaway poles that have broken away at other circles, but they were there for a reason. And anything they say, no, we can't put anything on it. And it's frustrating, but I think something painted on it would be more of a distraction. And if they're going to do anything, I think we need to go back to, they need to make it more visible with some height breakaway barrier. That's my thought. John and Bill and Ginny.
Yeah, I agree. It's a real problem. Seeing the circle and stopping when somebody's coming out of farewell quickly, and which car is going to make it around the circle first or into the circle. Also, the ice that forms there, they haven't done anything about that, which a couple of residents have been complaining about consistently. Mm-hmm. Some of them go Stevens Forest, past Stevens Forest School, turn around and go down Farewell, that way. And that part where they're making that turn, before they get onto Farewell, ice is up, and they've been complaining about that. Not that often it happens, but it happens.
I still really just don't understand I'm sorry. I was gonna say, I still really just don't understand their argument about the size of it. I mean, yes, you need something slightly wider than the travel lane so that the rear wheels of a large truck can go over the curb. But I don't think there's a vehicle large enough that, that its wheels would have to go over the dead center of that circle to navigate it. If you look at the amount of the amount of slightly raised jumpable surface at other traffic circles relative to the travel lane, like the one by Blandair Park, it's just a few feet. It's not, it doesn't cover the whole diameter of the circle. It goes in a few feet so that, large vehicles' wheels can hop up there, so they can make the turn, and there's still room for something in the center. I don't know that we need a grand center island. I'm just shocked that there can't be something small there. I mean, Bill and I stood in the middle of that circle. It is not, it does not seem as small as they make it out to be, especially when you then go and look at other circles that do have things in the center.
Well, John, what I've heard happen sometimes is if there's a slight accident on Ninth Street, two cars sort of blocking the turn part. People go right over the circle and keep going down Stevens Forest Road. So they want to
Of
be
course,
able,
yeah.
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 Do that. I don't know what the answer is.
But you know what? Why? I mean, why is that necessary there? If there were an accident 50 yards down the road, it would completely block a lane of Stevens Forest Road. You wouldn't be able to go around it. So why is it important to be able to go around it there?
Yeah, no, don't know.
I'm sorry, Warren, you were,
Well, I was going to say that Bob said that the reason is what you had said is that large trucks have to actually drive into the center of the circle. That's what he said was the explanation that the state told him. So
so, what we could do, we might be taking our lives into our hands. We could go out to other circles in the area. There's the one at Blandair, there's the one on Cradle Rock, and we could measure the distance from the curb to whatever fixture is in the center and measure that same distance in our circle and basically draw that circumference, because that should be the boundaries for whatever can go in the center. Right? Because geometry doesn't change. Either the truck can navigate all those others and should be able to do the same with ours if we give it the same amount of space, or it won't. And maybe it'll prove to us that ours is smaller than we think it is. But I don't think so from looking at some of these others. The amount of extra room they give for trucks to go up on the curb would not come all the way to the center of our circle, from what I can tell. But I'd be happy to go out with tape measures.
I don't
and
know.
talk.
I'll go with you. Sounds like an outing.
I think it might be an interesting thing to do, and maybe it'll prove us wrong. Maybe our perception is just off because it's a different setting. But it'll really surprise me if I measure off the one at Blandair or elsewhere, and then measure the same distance at ours and hit the middle of our circle.
Jonathan and Warren, on that point, there's possibly an easier way versus tape measure, although I did that myself, is to look at data.howardcountymd.gov with the measuring function that they have, and look at Cradle Rock, Homespun, and then Stevens Forest, Farewell, and measure the curb to curb of the roads coming into the circle, measure the curbing in the circle, outer edge of the circle, curbing on the inner edge, width of lanes, etc. And if I remember correctly, there's very, very, very little difference between Homespun, Cradle Rock and Farewell, Stevens Forest. So I'm surprised that Stevens Forest, you can't do anything, whereas Homespun, Cradle Rock, you've got a centerpiece in that roundabout. So it's something we can take another look at and do measurements. That's one way to do measurements. And then also you can get out there with the tape measure. And the second thing is the white poles, breakaway poles that Sandy's talking about. They have 3 of them at that corner. Let's see, it'd be the northeast corner of that roundabout. There are 3 white breakaway posts. They're 3 feet high and they're mounted on the edge of the curb. And one of them, I think, has been down for a week or two. That's what we'd be talking about. They also have those over from Blandair, the roundabout there, to the to be constructed roundabout at, was it Tamar and Old Montgomery, right by Jeffers Hill Elementary, that along there, there's the one development that you can only go in, curve in, and only curve out. And they've got a lot of the white stakes there in these concrete islands that are actually in the roadway themselves, so that there's plenty of precedent for the county using those as a, in quotes, notifying barrier out in the street, so they could easily be put in the center circle at Farewell, X number of feet in from the outer edge of the curbing of that circle. And it would be, in effect, the same as what they've got in these access exit islands over on Old Oakland Mills Road heading toward the new roundabout that'll be put in. So I'm game for any of that. Let me know what your thoughts are and if you'd want to get together. And I think preliminary probably is do some measurements online with data.howardcountymd.gov.
You know, Warren and Bill, you know what, maybe we can have a field trip day sometime soon. We can check out circles and then we can go out to River Hill High and check out that hill in their stadium.
A what? Hill in the
That's something
city?
else. I emailed Warren about it a couple of weeks ago. Warren and I were already planning one field trip,
We
so
did.
I'm trying to make it a multi-stop field trip.
Sounds good to me.
I've got some better
Yeah.
ideas for field trips, but anyway, okay, all right.
Jennifer, you had a hand up?
I do. So I have a question. Is there an issue with putting something in that circle because of trucks? Because it's a hill and trucks have usually like the manual that they have to navigate through, would that create the issue? Because if they have to, shift down and then all of a sudden they lose momentum, then it's harder for them to turn around that circle. Wouldn't it, like, could that be a part of it? And I only say this because my dad is a CDL trainer and I know that he has to train them like around circles. So I wonder if like that's part of it, because
That's a good question.
the other one, they don't have a bunch of hills that lead up to them or go down them.
That's a good question. They've never really given us a detailed response. Usually they try to say no as quickly as possible, but is your dad local?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I can ask him.
If you wouldn't mind, like next time he comes to visit you, would he mind going through there and giving his opinions
Okay.
on it?
He has to go through there anyway to get to me. So
Okay. Okay.
I can probably ask. He doesn't hit the car he drives is not a stick, but I bet you if he were to drive through it, he'd be like, oh yeah, if I were to drive like an 18-wheeler
Yeah.
through this would be kind of like a pain if I had to suddenly slow down and shift down versus, just going straight through it or something like that.
Yeah, that see, I told you we would find a way to reel you back in. There you go. You already have your post-board assignment.
Oh.
Exactly. I'll check back in.
Thank you. Yeah, we certainly don't want a tractor trailer rolling backwards down Stevens Forest Road because it lost momentum. That's a good
This is
point.
true. This is true. Anyway, that's all I had on the public space.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Lauren. All right. Well, this brings us to the end of the meeting and the end of the board year. So we are going to go to the bulletin board, and I'll start with Amy. Anything from the office?
Just a pleasure to serve with all of you the last year. Nice to get to know some new board members too. Jennifer.
Thank you. And
Nice
thank
to
you
get
for
to
all
know
you do.
Yeah,
All right.
And
Sandy,
Warren,
you-
sorry, Warren's been around a little bit longer, but he hasn't been on the board, but he's on the board now. So yeah, you too, Warren.
My pleasure as well.
Yeah, it's been, I think it's been a great year. So thank you, Jennifer, Rena, Lynn, and everyone else. We will miss those leaving, but we'll keep your emails handy. I did talk to Jonathan. I wanted to have some kind of get together of the board and acknowledge your leadership and hopefully the RAC and the NRAC. And so given AP testing and other things and going on vacations, we might be looking at June, but we're going to try to plan something for all of you and outgoing members and incoming, a courtyard party, maybe with some light dinner and just to get together. So it'll happen. It's just a date that I have to pick and see if everyone's around. So it would be nice to actually see everyone in person. So look forward to hearing from me on that.
sounds like fun.
It
Yeah,
should
so
be
don't think
lovely.
you're going anywhere, Jennifer.
And
You're not going anywhere.
Jonathan, you and Malia can string lights in the courtyard because you're good at that.
We will come by and string lights again. At least our hands won't be frozen this time.
So keep that in mind.
Sounds good.
Uh-huh.
All right, Ginny, anything?
No, I just got a strange call from Carolyn Ball's person asking me to speak at phase 6 of the Blandair Park thing Thursday. I got to get back to them.
What is it? They never tell us.
An opening. I don't know much about it. The opening of phase 6 of Blandair Park. I have no idea what's in phase 6. I guess
I
I gotta
didn't
look
know there
that up.
was something new open.
Yeah, I didn't either. Okay.
I don't know. It was a message on the answering machine, so find out what it is.
Okay.
No, I just want to thank everybody, Amy, Sandy, Brigida, blah, 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 all the staff and the board. It's been fun, actually, a fun year, so to speak, at least the board, it's been fun. And I'm just looking forward to next year and seeing how, at least as a CA board member, we can get even more things done. So I'm kind of excited about that and working with you guys. So thank you.
Thank you.
Or you're not going anyplace.
I'm not.
Oh,
Virginia, according to what I'm looking at on the capital plans for Blandair Park,
he finds everything right away.
phase 6 is a multi-purpose building that has been pushed out to future years, and a skate park that is only a concept design. So you may be standing in the middle of an empty field.
But it's an election year. It's an election year.
I
I don't know what phase 6 could be. Oh, well, I guess we'll find out.
Something
All
that
right, Lauren, anything
candidate
for the
wants.
bulletin board?
Sandy.
Yeah, it's been a great year. Thank you so much. I did have one thing. We have Patriot Lane Pond is one of my favorite places in Oakland Mills. And I put in a email to have the bench replaced because it was getting very shabby. And they were out there in 2 days and it was replaced.
So Bill, maybe you want to put in an email because I've asked for the benches in the courtyard to be replaced because they're really shabby, or is that a Warren it's a CA, but who'd you email?
Open space, I think.
Okay, I'll let them
Yeah,
know
you-
because
Yeah, it should be, my guess it should be open space.
yeah.
It
Because
is
Jan
open space,
Clark
yeah.
said she would get them actually sanded down, but I really would like new ones. Okay.
It is open space, right?
Yeah, it is open space. I'll do that tomorrow. Thanks, Warren.
Thanks,
Sure.
Warren. Jennifer?
So thank you guys for giving me a chance to be on this board. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed learning a lot from you all and working with you all. And I will still be around. I'm not moving anytime soon. I will definitely check in in some meetings when I can. And who knows, I may be back, not next year, but the year after. It's just kind of hard because this year I'm getting married and there's a lot of stuff going on.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
I
congratulations.
hope he's a nice guy.
Oh yeah, he's Warren's son. So
I
he's
know,
like-
I said that
I
on
heard he comes
purpose.
from a good family.
Yeah, I think he's okay. Yeah.
You think he's okay?
I think he's great. But thank you all. It was
I heard
great
he's
getting to
really a
know
nice
you.
guy. He's a lucky guy, actually.
I don't know. He might be the lucky one here, but it was great getting to know you guys. And I definitely look forward to seeing you guys around here and just, catching up when we can.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, that leaves me to wrap it up. So I think I said my thing during the remarks, but just once again, thank you all very, very much for all the time and effort and blood and sweat and tears you put into the community. It is certainly appreciated throughout the community, and I think we all appreciate each other very much as we've all just expressed. So I'm looking forward to a great year next year. I know our outgoing members won't be strangers. I'm looking forward to working with Jerome. And I'm also looking forward to saying for the last time this year, we are adjourned.
Wait, Jonathan
No,
still has
you
his
forgot.
hand raised.
Oh,
forgot-
I'm sorry,
you
Bill.
forgot Bill.
I didn't see.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
missed Bill. How did I miss Bill? We're not
That's all right.
adjourned.
That's all right. You're so used
We're
to
not
seeing
adjourned.
green.
I'm
It's just
sorry,
like blends into the background.
the pictures on my screen jumped around again. I usually go in reverse order and they jumped on me, so you moved. Let me
Yeah.
move you back. All right, Bill, sorry, Bill.
No, no problem, Jonathan. Thank you. You got a tough job with the moving Hollywood squares. Just want to say thanks to everybody on the board and our staff for a great year, very productive year, because we all bring our unique abilities and qualities to the board. We are able to say what we think and what we feel, and it's accepted, whether we agree or disagree, we accept, which I think is critical. There's no cancel culture on this board, which I think is critical. Everybody has their say. We're very productive and we get along well and we have fun getting the job done. It's been a fantastic year and I'm looking forward to the same next year. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Bill. Sorry about that. And now I can say we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
All right, guys. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye-bye.